once you hit that first tier of gear, as far as like there's a big stat difference I feel like between not having any gear and getting your first tier of gear, but from tier to tier, the gear doesn't really feel all that isn't a big jump in stats from going from tier to tier. So you can go into a raid with tier 1 gear and do a hard mode or a nightmare mode, and if all the players in your group, they know the fights and they know the mechanics and they know how to do their part, then you should be perfectly alright. Oh, I'm stunned. Use my breakaway. Oh, I'm stunned again. Come on. Hard mode flashpoints. Hard mode. Yeah, the problem is that the way to get gear for raids is doing hard mode flashpoints. And the problem is that if without a group finder, and if you're on a low population server, you're spending where's my group going? I'm gonna follow my group. And you're on a low population server and you're trying to do hard mode flashpoints to get the first 2 tiers of gear. Because basically how it works, and this is kind of goofy, but the way it works for hard mode flashpoints is you all the flashpoints, and not all the flashpoints, I take that back. All the really story heavy flashpoints. So for the Republic side, that's Essalus, Terrell 5, Maelstrom Prison, Directive 7, Battle for Ilum, False Emperor, and then they added Kaon Under Siege with 1.1 and Lost Island with 1.2. And all of those can be done in hard modes, and except for Lost Island, because Lost Island drops better gear. But all those other flashpoints drop what are called Tianese crystals and commendations and Kalumi gear. And Tianese crystals, you can go to a vendor on the fleet and buy the first tier of gear, and then I'm stunned again. And then what happens is you go through the whole flashpoint. You go through the dungeon. For WoW heavy centered people, we'll call them dungeons. You go through the whole dungeon, and all you do is you get tier 1, or you get these tier 1 crystals to buy the gear, and then you get to the end of the flashpoint or the dungeon to fight the final boss, and he does drop 1 piece of tier 2 gear, but all the gear is class specific.
The road is rough in the dark. I keep stumbling.
So where's this guy? Is that gonna guy go? Oh, we gotta wait for the ship to respawn. All right, well that's perfect. Anyway, so you do the whole dungeon to fight the final boss, who drops 1 stinking piece of gear. And so everyone's got to roll on that piece of gear if they're that class, because the gear in it's class specific. So it'll say on the end of the flashpoint, this piece is for a trooper or a bounty hunter, because obviously those are mere classes. Or this piece of gear is for a Sith warrior or a Sith or a Jedi Knight, and it'll tell you that when it drops. So all the Jedi Knights in the group. So if you have 2 Jedi Knights, or we're playing Empire right now, so if there's a Sith Juggernaut and a Sith Marauder in the same group doing a flashpoint, then both of them have to roll on this 1 piece of gear. And that means if you're not that class and you went through the whole instance, you didn't get any tier 2 gear. You didn't get squat. Yes. Well, here's how it works. It's kind of weird. What BioWare did is they have they have they have their raids for the end game content, and what happens is you have three different difficulty levels. The first difficulty level drops is kind of like the hard mode flashpoints. It drops T&E's crystals. It drops tier 1 commendations and crystals to buy the gear, but it drops a lot more tier 2 gear. Each boss will drop 2 random pieces of tier 2 gear for the group. And that's the first level of difficulty. It was originally called normal mode, and I guess you'll probably get into this fight. It was originally called normal mode, and now BioWare's changed it to story mode. And all that really means is it's on an easier difficulty. Then the next 2 tiers of difficulty for the first raid that was released with the game is hard mode and nightmare mode, and both of those drop tier 3 gear, which is called Ricotta. So basically what you want to do is you do your hard mode flashpoints and you do your normal mode raid, and you do your hard mode flashpoints and you do your story mode raid to get the first and second tiers of gear before you move on to doing hard mode and nightmare mode of the same raid. Tier 4 is Tier 4 is the newest tier of gear that came out with patch 1.2, and it's called this is stupid. They have 2 different names for it. It's called Campaign and Black Hole, and there's a difference. If you're a WoW player, then you're familiar with set bonuses, which if you know from being a WoW player that certain sets of gears were designed for your class, and having X number of pieces of that gear set granted your class a bonus. Right, so here's how it works. Tiers 1 through 3 all have the set bonus regardless. That's set in stone. You have your set bonus. Nope, we're not doing that fight. I'm going to follow the group this way, except I get stuck on the speeder. So tiers 1 through 3 have the set bonus. It's called T&E's, Kalumi, and Ricotta. They all have the set bonus. Tier 4, the way it works is the Black Hole gear does not have the set bonus, and the campaign gear does have the set bonus. And the way it works is that when you do the latest raid that came out with patch 1.2 is as you're playing, they drop different bosses and things drop what are called black hole commendations, and you use your black hole commendations to buy black hole gear. So you can save up black hole commendations to buy the black hole gear, and then the bosses will drop the campaign gear for the group, which is what will include the set bonus. So why they couldn't just release one freaking set of gear and make everyone's lives easier, I don't know. But BioWare decided to do this whacked out, goofy 2 gear set, 2 different sets of gear that are on the same level, but you have to acquire it different ways. I don't know. Probably BioWare just trying to keep people playing longer. Oh, he stealthed. Getting yelled at. There we go. Alright. Yeah, I didn't do a whole lot of endgame content in WoW, actually. I just didn't. But yeah, that it tiers up like that. It's normal mode, and you're probably right. Normal mode in WoW is the equivalent, and Nightmare is like heroic. Yeah, it tiers up the same way. And the higher difficulties drop better gear. Except for hard mode for the first two raids that came out. Hard mode and nightmare mode. No, excuse me. Hard mode and nightmare mode both drop the same gear. They both drop tier 3. However, when 1.2 came out, the second raid that they introduced, which was called Karaga's Palace, if you play it on the hardest difficulty, all the bosses will drop the black hole comms to buy tier 4 gear, and that'll allow you to, buy that gear that doesn't have a set bonus. So, or you can use it to buy, here, I'll bring up my character sheet. You can use it to buy the gear that won't drop, like earpieces, implants, relics, that kind of stuff that doesn't have a set bonus anyway. Even though some of those pieces will still drop tokens for you to turn in at the fleet. I want to understand why they did things that way, but it's really more of just a pain in the ass than it is beneficial. And the other problem is that with 1.4, whoever sits behind whoever is their because we all sit on our side and do theory crafting on what's going on with the game, and I'm trying to figure out who did some of the itemization and numbers. And I'll probably just move on. Who did some of the itemization and the figuring for the 1.4 gear, because a lot of the stats that are included with the new gear sets just aren't itemized for those characters very correctly, in my opinion. And both the characters that I have, tier 3 gear did a really good job. Tier 3 gear did a really good job of really maximizing a character's potential. And the problem is with the campaign gear, all the tier 4 gear, a lot of it doesn't work very well. So what you end up having to do is you have to, and since Star Wars has the modification system, you pretty much spend all your time buying the same piece of gear over and over and over again, and taking all the good mods out of it and putting it in other gear. And it's way more difficult than it needed to be, in my opinion. And I would agree that the raids and the endgame content. Hold on, I'm reading what you just typed. I gotta say though, the endgame fights in SWTOR are actually a lot of fun. There's a lot of mechanics to it, and there's a lot of fun to it. If you go and you watch some of the endgame runs or what have you with I guess we're going this way now, right? Waiting on my group here. Yeah, unfortunately, BioWare, I don't know. I like BioWare games, I really do. I kind of gotta wonder, what was going on in BioWare's, head trying to make an MMO, because, let's be real. BioWare really excels at making single-player, story-based games. That's what they're best at, That's what they're known for.